The Stink March had no planned route, schedule, or permit. A protester's risk of being arrested was estimated at about 50%. This was the longest day.
Educate yourselves about the Tobin tax. Roughly $25 trillion gets traded every day, currency, buying and selling currency. And so this guy Tobin had this great idea that if you taxed 0.25% of all those trillions of dollars that get traded every day, you could have enough money for, free education for people, free healthcare, clean water, all over the world. It wouldn't take very long at all.
We're now proceeding to do part of the secret plan. We will now infiltrate the police. Come on, guys. Come on. See? They didn't even notice us. I mean, G8, they're not even allowing a conversation to be taped for the people to hear. What's the point? They go defend democracy, justice, and freedom? They're just so full of shit. But it's not about the cops. These guys aren't the problem. They're just a symbol of the power of what they stop if you go over a line.
Police services are apolitical. We have an assignment here. Our assignment is to uphold the law. That includes the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is the primary law of Canada.
1, 2, 3, 4, eat, drink, and be the 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, organize and smash G8!
I applied for a media pass. I was turned down because the RCMP said I was some sort of security issue. They wouldn't say why. You got to file an access information request to find out why. I did that, and then this law firm called me up out of the blue and said, "This sounds interesting." And they picked up this case pro bono. They spent about 7 hours on the Monday before the summit putting together an affidavit. They filed it seeking an injunction. The Crown was all set to fight. And then this morning in Court of Queen's Bench in Edmonton, the Department of Justice lawyers walked in and said, "Oh, we're printing him a pass right now."
I want to know, is there any reason we have to block the public transit, the people's transit, the environmentally friendly transit?
As we know, protesters are synonymous with violence and vandalism, but they really want to protect themselves and keep a good name. I mean, we have seen a few that tried to jump some of the barriers at the protest last evening, and the other protesters grabbed them and said, "Get down," and they pulled them down. So it seems to be like a family environment. They don't want these people tainting the image of the other hundreds that are trying to just peacefully get their message out.
All right, ready as a photographer as a goal?
Why did we have the soccer game? Because it was a way to kind of occupy some space without being like uber political about it. I guess the message was just that we're not a bunch of crazy, violent, anarchist, terrorist freaks, and that we're just here to have a good time.
Power-sucking fascist slime! Power-sucking fascist slime! Authoritarian corporate crime! Authoritarian corporate crime!
I used to work with a guy that was a pretty big supporter of the protesters. He tried to fill me in, but they're talking about camps over in Indonesia making clothes, child stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, I saw all the protesters wearing Nike clothes. I mean, they're supporting the biggest crooks out there. So I don't know if they even know what the idea is.
You have to alert the large number of people who actually don't know the globalization just simply isn't about free trade. It's about, again, who's getting rich, who's getting poor, the kinds of conditions that people are working in the poor countries in the world, many of whom are women. And that's really where you're putting a human face, a young girl's face, on globalization. It's just not about old rich men in white in suits.
The protester in the red bandana is shouting about attacking the fast food chain as a symbol of corporate globalization. The woman in the tree is arguing that violence will ruin any real message the media will take. The peaceful protesters made sure nothing happened, and the McDonald's confrontation was the closest the main protest came to a real clash with the police.
This is how the police state works. It works on intimidation and illegal activity.
It was the last day of the G8 conference. A plan was made to head out of Calgary and attempt the 60-kilometer drive to Kananaskis, where the delegates were already leaving in caravans. We gave rides to protesters and interviewed them on our way.
The only war is the class war. We won't dissolve that, get into that. All the other wars will disappear. The truth is there. It's in the newspapers, it's in the news. You just have to listen to it to figure it out. And the world is a pretty bad place right now for a lot of people. Even for us luxurious ones in the West.
You should ask these police officers if they have probable cause to search their vehicle. They're claiming they think there's a weapon on board or something. That's absolutely without cause. As you might have saw in the last footage, we had our car almost searched by a police officer who had no name tag, which he is supposed to wear identification, but obviously when you're doing something illegal, like the police officers like to do, they will remove their name tag. This is how the police state works. It works on intimidation and illegal activity.
This area here is for emergency stopping only. This is not an emergency, okay? Otherwise, you cannot stop.
I could understand if we were causing a problem, but it doesn't look like we are. Looks
Well,
like
you are causing a problem.
There's a lot of police cars up there blocking our rightful access to Kananaskis village. That seems to be a lot more of a problem. To rightful
Stay
passage.
here, I don't care. The tow trucks are coming.
He says, you don't move your cars from the village. And I just basically said, what law? He said, oh, you couldn't say, so you have to talk to my superior. I said, you don't have to follow an unlawful order. You couldn't say any law that he was enforcing. And he said, oh, then you can talk to my superior. And then he didn't say where I could reach him or how I could talk to him.
Okay, we're gonna go. I'm gonna leave you here. Is that cool? That's cool.
Okay. Well, this might be a superior.
Both of them are resisting.
The shorter police officer was threatening to arrest us and seize our vehicles. We left. 1 full week of protesting was finished, and I don't think the G8 ever noticed we were there.
This guy who's
vehicle. You don't want to leave? Let's go now. Right now. Now.
He's impersonating a police officer. Yes. Don't obey him.
Afterward, all sides claimed responsibility for the peaceful protests. Leaders said it was their isolation, police touted their tactic of gentle force, and activists declared it a sign that the movement was maturing. Without any drama to steal the headlines, protesters were left wondering whether their message was more explored or ignored, and where the movement would move next.